Okay, I'm here today with my friend Jennifer, and we're going to work on a math objective together. We're going to co-teach these lessons, and the objective is recognize that in a multi-digit whole number, a digit in one place represents 10 times what it represents in a number or a digit to its right. So, Jennifer, I know you wanted to work with the vocabulary. So, what are you thinking about doing with that?
Okay, so in the vocabulary, we're going to do the interactive math notebooks, and I do those because that's where part of where we're going to collect our evidence. We're also going to be able to see whether the kids understand what we're talking about and what they're not.
So, and I've been wanting to learn to do that. So I'm glad you're doing it at the beginning because
I always front load my vocabulary that way because there's no reason to put it at the end. Because we've already talked about the whole lesson, and we get to the end, they're like, well, I didn't understand what that word meant, and I still don't. And now now I finally got it at the very end of the lesson. I want them to understand that vocabulary at the very beginning. So what I did with the objective is I went ahead and I pulled out 3 things I think were key. One is whole numbers, one is place value, and the other vocabulary is 10 times a number. So each one of those would be on its own page. So whole number would be on a page with the definition, whether it's a definition that we come up together or a child can write it in their own words. The ones that would probably come up with together would be the ones where I would need to differentiate those who are just struggling learners, differentiating things like that. And then we'd also put an example. What is a whole number? What is not a whole number? So we might write a 200, and they may have to write their own numbers. And then what was not, where they would either put a fraction or a decimal like 2.5, something that is not a whole number. So they understand that the yes and no part of it.
Okay, so when we're doing this, would it be okay then? Those who are struggling with the definition, I could sit with them separately during that lesson? Okay.
Yeah. And then you would also have your observation note saying, yes, that so-and-so is struggling, but hey, they got it. So it'd be part of the pre and post observations also. The next page then would be place value. And we would put a blank place value chart on there. Starting label each one of the boxes, 1, tens, hundreds, put our comma, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s. That chart's going to come in later when they do the center, then with the place value dice. But again, that also gives them a great visual when they're having to look at that and see. Okay, here's where when I say 10,000, this is what it looks like. It's in the tens place, but there's 3 zeros after the 10 because there's that comma there.
Are you putting the digits in with a card, or are you actually writing on this? Because the reason I'm asking is I have place value mats, and they can put digit cards on the mat.
Now this is more for them to physically write it to start with. So they would label place value 1, tens, hundreds, commas, so they see visually how it looks. And then when they're doing the dice rolling with the place value dice during the center, then they can, when they roll like one of the dice and it comes up 6,000, they can put the 6, and they know to put it in the thousands in that box. So they can physically put that dice in there and then look at the number and go, okay. And again, look at that 6, let's say 6,000, and have those zeros after the 6, and gives them more that vision of that place value of understanding where does it go. That could be a center that we can have a parent in that's helping to, who's in there, parent volunteer that's helping that day, or it's a center that, we're in, or it's an independent one.
Okay, so collecting the evidence that day, the notebooks certainly would be a formative assessment. We could read through those.
Right. And then the last page would also be that 10 times the number, where I would start with like 10 times 10 is 100, which is a really basic, we learned some of that in kindergarten, but then just going to 10 times 20, and then they would have to start, then they could do that chart and write it down all the way to 10 times 100 and get their 1,000, and if they can continue to go, then again, we're checking to see, do they understand what that 10 times is, and then, maybe they can also talk about where, how that place value looks.
Okay, well, from there, what I want to do is take the base 10 blocks. I want to use the smart board to display the manipulatives on the board, but I also want to do a lesson where they're exchanging the blocks. One's the units blocks for the 10 stick, and then the 10 sticks for the 100 flat, and the hundreds for the thousands cube. And I would like to do that with them during a lesson and talk about that, how much more 1 unit or 10 units are compared to 1 unit, etc. And then from there, I think they should play a game. The one I'm most familiar with that really gets the point across is that build 100, and they have 2 die, and they roll, and they move or take the number of units. It can be 2 people in a group,
Okay.
or I'm sorry, partners, or more in a group. But each one takes turns, so they take from a pile of units until they get 10, and then they exchange it. So they build until they get to either 100 flat or 1,000 cube. I think to differentiate, some of the kids would only go to the 100 flat after we see.
Would we pair the kids up because I think I'm looking at that and I'm thinking we have some really strong math kids and some weaker strata. So I would probably pair a weaker with a stronger, or in a small group once, because we would model how to play the game to start with, correct?
Right, I would model how to play the game, and then I've done this as a whole group, but it's not as much fun, and we can't learn as much that way. So what I want to do, I would pair them up. So I think your idea about pairing a stronger student with a weak student would be fine. At least the first time or 2 they go through the game. And then I'd like to put the game in a center
Yes.
so that they can return to it.
Yeah, I like spiraling because when kids come back and they spiral, even if we've gone past that, then it's like, oh yeah, I remember how to do this. Or for just those who need additional help or just that additional reinforcement of it.
And once that's done, you can do the same thing with the blocks and the mats. I have the place value mats with the digit cards. So the kids can see that the 10 units make 1, and that 10 of those make 100, but they can also record the digits. So the mats have a place at the top half where they have the 1s, 10s, 100s places, and the bottom half where they place the digits.
Okay.
So I like that because it's a good transition. Some of the kids won't use the blocks because they're beyond that, but the others can continue to use them.
Right, and we would be collecting that evidence in our notes of when we're as we're observing the kids or working in a small group with kids. I mean, I'm assuming that I would still be working in a small group.
I would think that for this part, we have to do the observation on a list with what we see to the right, so that we know who needs the modified game the next day if we play it, more than one day in a row or in the center. And also then anything they submit in writing those place value mats, we might want to take a picture of them with the iPad with each kid to see what they've done.
Yeah.
So other than that, I think we've got enough there with formative assessment with the evidence sheet and the papers that they have. So I think we need to do more of this, probably do a full week of lessons like this with the centers, and then we can do an assessment of where we are and then schedule our final summative assessment.
One of the things that you made me think of when we were talking about pairing the kids into the center of the game is, as we're walking around doing observations and taking our evidence notes, is maybe have the kids explain. Can they explain? Can they do that critical thinking piece of understanding? Okay, I've got 6 units, and I rolled a dice, and I got 6 more. Now I can trade that. Maybe asking the students to talk with each other about, listening. Are they listening, or are they doing that math talk? That's really critical. That
I think we
to each other.
definitely need to check the vocabulary that they're using when we're doing the observations, so be sure they understand 10 times more. And for some of our more advanced kids, we may even be able to do more than just 10 times. We should think about doing, some of the kids could do 100 times or 1,000 times. They've had place value to 1,000s. They get to 100,000s later in the year, so I think that would be a good
And
thing.
these numbers are not just all zeros, right? They're multi-digit numbers.
Right.
They show different values.
So if they do 250 and we say, what's 10 times that? They should be able to say 2,500.
Yeah, because you taught them how to look at the zeros and count the zeros also is another trick to go with.
Yes, so we can do that. And that was what I was going to talk about, was the pattern with the zeros are going to be clear. But I think this is a good first week for us. And I think we should stop at the end of this week and
Should we do an exit?
evaluate.
Yeah, should we do an exit ticket evaluation?
We
so,
could.
So we can say, okay, and give the kids a problem, and they all have to write on their exit ticket what it is, and that's a real quick way to see, okay, do they understand like just that one basic piece?
And that would be a lot simpler. I certainly want to look at all their notebooks and everything, but that's a
But
really
but at the end of the week, if we
simple
look at
way.
that one critical thing, whether it's having them just give them the problem and they have to write it, in word form,
Okay.
their thinking, or would it be just have them?
Either way, I think we can talk about it midweek, what that exit ticket's going to look like, because we'll have a better idea of where we're going as far as what they're achieving or not achieving. So I think we should plan the exit ticket based on what we're seeing. Are most of them getting it? Then we think they are. Then we need to check.
Right.
If we don't see that, I think we need to come up with further lessons. So that's why I want to meet again on Friday, go over all the evidence, and then we can plan what we're going to do next week.
Yeah, we can look at what do we need to reteach. Where are the gaps? What exactly. It may just be a really small area that we need to clean up. Maybe it was just a forgetting of that vocabulary,
All
that
right.
piece.
Well, thanks for meeting with me. And
You are welcome.
We will start with this right on Monday. We'll do the vocabulary lesson, and I will go ahead and do the evidence collection for that and look over those notebooks too.
Yeah, and then we just need to have the manipulatives bagged ready to go.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
You're gonna